My ex-best friend once told me, "You'll always be the backup. The one people settle for. Just accept it." She cut me off right before graduation and took credit for our joint project. This morning, I was named head of a major agency. Minutes later, she walked in for an interview. I didn't say a word until she saw my name on the door and whispered. I grew up in this small town in Ohio. You know the kind, one main street, everyone knows each other's business, and gossip travels fast. That's where I met Megan. We became best friends in middle school. It wasn't just casual friendship, we were thick as thieves. We'd have sleepovers every weekend, swap clothes, talk about boys, dream about the future. We both wanted to get out of our small town, make something of ourselves. We both loved marketing and business, so when we both got into Ohio State, it felt like fate. Like we were going to take on the world together. During college, we did almost everything together. Classes, projects, parties, everything. We were inseparable, or so I thought. But looking back, I can see it now, there were cracks. Megan had this way of taking control. She liked to shine. I was quieter, more of the behind-the-scenes type. I did the work, she took the spotlight. It didn't bother me much at first, I figured we were a team. I didn't mind doing the extra work if it meant we both succeeded. But the closer we got to graduation, the more it started to feel off. Senior year, we had this huge final project that would determine most of our grade. It was the capstone of our degree. We agreed to work together like we always did. I threw myself into it, late nights, early mornings, sacrificing my social life. Megan helped, but she started pulling away. She'd cancel meetings, show up late, not answer my texts for days. When she was around, she'd brush me off, say she was busy or tired. I didn't want to rock the boat, so I kept my head down and did the work. I figured she'd come through when it mattered. But a week before graduation, she ghosted me. I couldn't reach her, texts, calls, nothing. I was panicking because our presentation was coming up. I showed up alone, ready to present it myself if I had to. But when I got there, I found out she'd already presented it the day before. Alone. And she didn't just present it, she took full credit. No mention of me, not a word. My name wasn't anywhere on the project. I was shocked. I went straight to her dorm after, and she actually opened the door. I asked her why. She looked me dead in the eyes and said, "You'll always be the backup. The one people settle for. Just accept it." Then she shut the door in my face. I walked away from that dorm like a zombie. I couldn't believe it. Everything we'd been through, gone. Just like that. I cried for days. I barely made it through graduation. My parents tried to comfort me, but they didn't understand. I didn't even tell them the full story. I felt stupid, used, betrayed. But I didn't stop. I packed up my car and moved to Chicago. I didn't have a job lined up, just a degree and a broken heart. I took a receptionist job at a tiny marketing firm and just started over. For years, I worked my ass off. I stayed late. I said yes to every project. I took on tasks no one else wanted. I networked. I learned. I climbed the ladder, step by step, while Megan was out there. I didn't even know. I heard she was working at a firm in New York, then one in San Francisco, but we never crossed paths. Until today. This morning, I was officially named the new head of a major marketing agency in Chicago. It's been 15 years since Megan cut me off. I was sitting in my new office, still getting used to the title on my desk, when the receptionist knocked and said the next interviewee was here for the senior marketing manager role. I glanced at the resume before looking up. I swear to God, my heart stopped. It was Megan. She didn't recognize me at first. She walked in like she owned the place, all smiles and confidence. But then her eyes fell on the nameplate on my desk. And she froze. Her face drained of color. Her smile faltered. I didn't say a word. I just looked at her, waiting. The silence was heavy, and the air in the room felt thick. I watched as she struggled to piece it together. Her eyes flicked from my nameplate to my face, back to the nameplate. And then, like it hit her all at once, she whispered under her breath, so quiet I almost missed it, "No way." I just leaned back in my chair, still not saying anything. I could see the panic rising in her eyes. I could feel it in the air. She shifted in her seat, her hands shaking slightly as she clutched her resume. And that's where we are now. Waiting. Me, sitting there in complete control. And her, finally seeing me for who I really am. She cleared her throat, trying to act like it was just another interview. She put on a shaky smile and said, "Wow, small world, huh? I didn't know you worked here." I didn't respond right away. I just stared at her, calm, waiting for her to keep going. She fidgeted with her hands, glancing at the resume in front of her like she was seeing it for the first time. After a long pause, I said, "Yeah. I'm the head of this agency now." She let out this nervous little laugh, like she thought it might lighten the mood. It didn't. I could see the sweat forming on her forehead. "I had no idea," she said, her voice too high, too fake. "Congrats on the promotion." I leaned forward a little. "It's not a promotion. I was hired as the new head. As of this morning." Her mouth opened a little like she was going to say something else, but she closed it again. She looked down, pretending to straighten her resume. Her hands were trembling. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. Then I remembered every time I had called her, texted her, begged her to help with our project. I remembered how she looked me in the eye and told me I'd always be the backup. So I said, "Let's start the interview. Tell me why you want to work here." She looked up at me, eyes wide, mouth slightly open. She stammered for a second, then tried to collect herself. "Well, I have a lot of experience in marketing. I've worked at several firms across the country. I think I could bring a lot to your team." Her words were all over the place. It was like she couldn't focus. Her usual confidence was gone. She kept glancing at me like she couldn't believe I was the one sitting behind the desk, holding all the power. I nodded slowly, not letting her off the hook. I let the silence stretch out after every sentence she said, watching her squirm. Then I asked, "Tell me about your time at Evermark in San Francisco. You were there for 2 years, right?" She hesitated. Yes, it was a great opportunity," I cut her off. "I heard they had a major scandal during your time there. Something about a data breach and false reporting. Were you involved in that?" Her face flushed. "No, of course not. I wasn't part of that team. I had nothing to do with it." I nodded, jotting something down on a notepad, not because I needed to, but because I wanted her to sweat. She kept talking, trying to explain, but the cracks were showing. I could see her desperation. She was rambling, trying to impress me, trying to act like this was just a normal interview. But it wasn't. Then I asked the next question. "What would you say is your biggest weakness?" She looked caught off guard, like she hadn't expected that. She opened her mouth, closed it, then said, "I guess, sometimes I can be too focused on results." I raised an eyebrow. Too focused on results? Or too focused on taking credit for other people's work? Her eyes snapped up to meet mine. I didn't smile. I just kept my gaze steady, waiting for her to answer. She sat there, frozen. The air in the room was thick with tension. I could see her breathing quicken. Her hands clutched the edges of the chair. She looked like she was about to say something, but then, she just sat there. Silent. And that's when I knew. She remembered everything, just like I did. And this? This was just the beginning. I let the silence hang between us for a long time. She was clearly flustered, her eyes darting around the room like she was looking for an escape. I leaned back in my chair, watching her, letting the weight of what was happening sink in. The woman who once told me I'd never be anything more than a backup, who took my work and claimed it as her own, was now sitting in front of me, desperate for a job. I glanced at her resume again, tapping my pen against the table. "I see you've been jumping around a lot," I said, my voice calm, almost casual. 3 jobs in 5 years. What's going on there? She opened her mouth, then shut it again. She looked like she wanted to explain, but the words wouldn't come out. So I kept going. "I also noticed, you were let go from Evermark." I paused, watching her reaction. "Care to explain?" Her face flushed red. "It wasn't. I mean, there were a lot of factors," she stammered. "The company was going through changes, and, well, there were some misunderstandings." I tilted my head slightly, waiting for more, but she stopped. Her eyes wouldn't meet mine. I could see the wheels turning in her head, the panic rising. Then she tried to change the subject. "So, how have you been?" "It's been a long time." I didn't take the bait. I wasn't here to catch up. Instead, I leaned forward, my voice low and firm. "Did you ever think about what you did? That project? The one you took credit for?" She looked like I'd slapped her. She blinked, her mouth opening and closing like she couldn't believe I was bringing it up. "Finally," she said, barely above a whisper, "I was young. I made a mistake." I didn't say anything. I just stared at her, watching her squirm in the chair. The silence was heavy, like a weight pressing down on both of us. But then, here's the twist, she did something I didn't expect. She straightened up, took a deep breath, and said, "I'm sorry. For what I did. I shouldn't have done it. I was selfish, and I didn't think about how it would affect you. I regret it." I stared at her, stunned for a second. I didn't expect her to admit it, let alone apologize. But I wasn't sure if it was real or just a desperate attempt to save face. Her voice was shaky, and she wouldn't meet my eyes. Then, like she couldn't help herself, she kept talking. "But you have to understand, I had to do it. My parents were in debt, and I needed that job offer to help them. I didn't have a choice." That hit me hard. I hadn't known any of that. But then I thought back, if she'd just told me, if she'd just been honest, maybe I would have understood. Maybe we could have worked something out. But instead, she threw me under the bus. I kept my face blank. I wasn't going to let her guilt trip me. Before I could say anything, there was a knock at the door. My assistant poked her head in. "Sorry to interrupt, but your 11 a.m. meeting is here." I nodded. Megan stood up quickly, smoothing out her skirt, her eyes wide like she was waiting for me to say something, anything. But I didn't. I just said, "We'll be in touch." And as she walked out, I could see her shoulders tense. She knew exactly what that meant. She knew this wasn't over. Not yet. I sat there for a few seconds after she left, my heart pounding. I could still feel the heat from the confrontation. I wanted to let it go, to just file her resume in the trash and move on, but something inside me wouldn't. It wasn't just about the job anymore, it was about making sure she knew what it felt like to lose everything. Like I had. I spent the next week gathering everything I could on Megan. I called a few contacts at Evermark and a few other places she'd worked. It didn't take much to dig up the dirt. Turns out, Megan had a pattern. She'd taken credit for work she didn't do at multiple jobs. People had complained, but she was slick, always playing the victim. She'd jump ship before things got too bad, just like she'd done to me. I started putting together a file, a detailed report with emails, statements, proof of her lies. I added a few letters from people she'd heard along the way. The story was ugly. And I wasn't going to let it slide. Then, I reached out to a few people I knew in the industry. I called in every favor I had. I made sure they all saw the file. I didn't send it out anonymously. I put my name on it. I wanted them to know it was me. It spread fast. By the end of the week, Megan's reputation was in shambles. The job offer she had lined up at another agency? Gone. Interviews cancelled. Word got around, Megan couldn't be trusted. But I wasn't done. I had my assistant call her and tell her she didn't get the job. Megan actually came in the next day, begging to talk to me. I agreed. She came into my office, tears in her eyes, her makeup smudged. She looked like she hadn't slept. She sat down, hands shaking, and said, "Please, you don't understand. I need this job. I'll do anything. Please." I stared at her. I could feel the anger bubbling up again, but this time it was different. I felt calm. In control. I leaned forward and said, "You'll always be the backup. The one people settle for. Just accept it." Her face crumbled. The words hit her like a slap. I saw the moment it clicked for her, how the same sentence she'd used to break me was now coming back to crush her. She broke down, sobbing in front of me. I let her cry for a minute, then stood up and told her the interview was over. She left my office in a mess, tears running down her face, makeup streaked. I watched her go, and I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. But then, a few weeks later, I got a call from HR. They told me some of the ways I'd handled Megan's situation, digging into her past, contacting other agencies, was seen as a conflict of interest. It wasn't professional, they said. A few board members thought I'd gone too far. There was talk of reviewing my position. At first, I was angry. How could they not see the full picture? But then it hit me. I had gone too far. I let my grudge get the better of me. I could have just rejected her and moved on. But I wanted to destroy her. And in doing so, I exposed myself. I spent weeks on edge, waiting for their decision. Finally, they called me in. The board said they appreciated my hard work and vision, but they felt my actions didn't reflect the values of the company. They asked me to resign quietly. I was stunned. Just like that, it was over. I walked out of that building feeling numb. I thought about Megan. I thought about how we both ended up here, both of us losing something because of what we'd done to each other. She lost her career. I lost mine. I moved back to my hometown in Ohio. I'm working at a small local firm now. It's not what I pictured for myself, but it's enough. Megan, I heard, is working retail somewhere in Florida. We both paid the price. It wasn't the ending I expected. But maybe, in a messed up way, it's what we both deserved.